Well, moving on the program now, the President Bola Tinubu, has been very, very busy. And one of the things he's done is to sign the Electricity Act. And that Electricity Act is supposed to consolidate all legislations that handle electricity supply industry to provide an inclusive and ideal institutional framework to control the post-privatization phase of the Nigerian electricity supply industry and encourage private sector investment in the state. Needless to say, states are now involved. Well, there's also supposed to be a demonopolization of the Nigeria's electricity generation, transmission, and distribution at the national level to empower states, companies, individuals generate and transmit and distribute electricity in the country. Well, who best to discuss this but a scholar in electricity law in Africa, Professor Yemi Oke, joins us virtually. Professor Oke, good morning and thank you for your time. I know you must have been excited when we saw the president sign this, shortly following former presidents also, signing it and getting electricity out of the exclusive lists.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I've been very excited and I'm happy for myself. I'm happy for Nigeria and Nigerians. I've received a lot of congratulatory messages as if it was personally made for me. But it's been decades of consistency in terms of advocacy. And let me publicly acknowledge that now we have a document that will work and that should work. For us in the power sector. I acknowledge the fact that not all, most of our suggestions, our issues, the inadequacies in the now repealed Electric Power Sector Reform Act have been taken care of in the new Electricity Act. Starting from the nomenclature, we argued that the Nigerian Electric Power Sector Reform Act was not a piece of legislation meant to operationalize the sector. So now we have not a law to reform, but a law now to operationalize the sector. Two, the new act takes care of NIC, what we call Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry, holistic approach to sector regulation. We're looking at now the law effectively, on paper though, regulates generation, transmission, supply, trading, enforcement, consumer protection, consumer rights and obligation, because once you have a right, there will be obligations that will go with it. The law now brings about a kind of holistic, integrated regime in the power sector. Of course, it promotes development of a very competitive electricity market, which is key, in line with the constitutional amendment. It brings off states to make laws in respect of every aspect of the electricity supply in the Nigerian electricity supply industry. So it's a welcome development. But one thing I want to point out, no leader brings about a change. The leader is meant to take a lead and provide a kind of leadership. Nigerians are the ones to operate and operationalize this law. We are the ones to put life, meaning, and purpose to this piece of legislation to work for all of us to make Nigeria a better country. There are a number of issues I'm not too comfortable with in the law. Of course, I admit there's no perfect law anywhere in the world. There will always be room for improvement, and we keep adding values, improving the law, the system through regulation, through policy direction, through implementation, through ingenious management and regulatory approaches. I'm not too comfortable with the retention of NEMCO. NEMCO is Electricity Liability Management Company, because it connotes an impression that what was given to Nigeria was a kind of liability because Nigeria didn't quite make money from the power sector privatization. We all admit that. But NEMCO now should, the way I say it, the way I've argued, NEMCO now should be restructured as a kind of something similar to what we have in the NDIC, Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation. NEMCO now should now transform into a kind of bulk insurer to mitigate failures, business failures in the power sector. I'm also not comfortable with the retention of INBET, Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company. I envisage a situation in which now that we are going to the competitive stage, the INBET, of course, should be get done away with. INBET should also be restructured. Something similar to what we have under petroleum industry had. When NNPC, old NNPC, is now NNPC Limited, INBET should not be a business player, a bulk trader, buying and selling and dealing with all aspects of electricity. That is not seen immediately in the law. But I acknowledge the fact that we have NEPTIN, which is now Nigerian Electricity, the National Power Training Institute, which is to train manpower for the power sector. That's commendable. Of course, I argued that we can't be having MEMSA. MEMSA has not been integrated into the law. That's Nigerian Electricity Management Agency. So a lot of innovative things, extensive framework in terms of renewables. Of course, I'm still not comfortable that we still have rural electrification, rural electrification agency, a rural electrification fund in the law as a federal entity. No, I will have rather a situation in which we have rural electrification being ceded off completely to state government to deal with it, being closer and closer to the rural.
All right,
by and large, we've seen in of legislation, and our challenge as a people is to make it work. As industry players, we should make it work.
All right, Prof.
Then we continue to show leadership.
So I didn't hear you talk about this. One fear that has been expressed is the issue of double regulator, because the law now empowers states that have passed the electricity market laws. Actually, they can now give licenses. Obviously, the state will also follow up with those licenses. It will be a form of revenue generation. There will be regulation coming from the state. And you still have the NERC also as a regulator. So some people are afraid that there might be multiple regulations, just like we are having the issue of multiple taxation, and that might also come into play here.
Thank you. I acknowledge that fact. I wasn't going to, of course, immediately make that. I wouldn't want to talk about scary images or amplify scary components of the new electricity act. As I said, good way to start. We have a lot that will work to operationalize the industry. Of course, we still have areas for improvement, one of which is what you just mentioned, that will have dual regulation, what I call regulatory surplusage. On the one hand, we have NRC being retained to continually regulate the sector, particularly for states that have not developed or enacted their own legal framework. And I felt that was needless. One, because all states in Nigeria will eventually have a piece of legislation, however imperfect those may be, to regulate the electricity sector in their respective states. So, giving NERC powers as a kind of interim regulator for states that have not enacted their laws, to me, is needless. But that's not something to worry about, because I want to assume that, of course, as we've been saying for 1 and 2 decades, every state in Nigeria will eventually have a piece of legislation, even adopting existing ones from some states and changing names. Well, of course, we have in Lagos already, we have in Ondo, we have in Edo. and a lot of other states are. I think we also have something in Kaduna. Most states now are being optimistic in a matter of months.
Well, looks like the bandwidth of Professor Kerr is not so strong at this time. We do hope that we can have him back to conclude this conversation, because one of those areas that actually we would like for Professor Kerr to clarify would be the act stating that anyone may construct, own, or operate an undertaking for generating electricity not exceeding 1 megawatt in aggregate at site. A lot of people would say, well, a lot of Nigerians are already generating their own electricity at this time. So what's the implication of this, so that also it doesn't get abused? As we know, in Nigeria, we can all fist on one thing and, you know, make it lose the value it was supposed to have. So I believe, I don't know if we have Professor Kerr back. Professor Kerr, can you hear me now?
I'm here.
All right.
I'm here. I can hear you.
Okay, Prof, we lost you for a bit now, but let me just ask this. The Act states that anyone may construct, own, or operate an undertaking for generating electricity not exceeding 1 megawatt in aggregate at a site. What does this mean, and what's the implication of this to individuals?
Ordinarily, even under the old law, if you can generate less than 1 megawatt without a license. If you generate less than a megawatt, you don't actually need a license. But now you can generate, but you may not be able to distribute, meaning you may not be able to trade with what you are generating without a license. Is to create a kind of a sanity in the system, and avoid a situation which we have powerful individuals, those who are well-to-do, generating as much as 2 megawatts and connecting all kinds of homes and communities and trading, because you can't actually go into generation, transmission, or trading in electricity without license. Licenses now from state government, essentially, the state in that area, or from the NR, from the federal government. So is to regulate it. But we've always had a situation in which individual, particularly corporate entities, were allowed to generate less than 1 megawatt. I'm sure a lot of people are not aware that it's only when you generate in excess of 1 megawatt that you need electricity licenses. My own approach now is that then what we argued before was that NERC should not bother itself with licensing less than 5 megawatts. But now, as the current law stands, states can license all kinds of megawatt generation.
All right.
For grid-based or.
Okay, so now what it means is that states should have very active, I don't know to call it energy or electricity ministry, but now there's the fear of bureaucracy in getting these licenses, because we do know that a lot of entrepreneurs who will gladly delve into this as a form of business, you know, business operating, provide electricity and make their own profits and revenue out of it. But the issue of bureaucracy, because we see it with land, someone buys a land years after, they're still trying to get the C of O, you know, from the state government. So how do you see these being simplified so that we can actually benefit from this law and get individuals or corporates, you know, get into this business, provide electricity for more economic activities, and also, you know, or even provide employment on their own side?
Thank you. I see two things happening. One, I see states now taking steps to have an efficient regulatory framework in place. Then assist states reaching out to industry experts to man strategic positions to get things done, like we have in the private sector. Assist states trying to do away with needless bureaucracies for this kind of very sensitive sector. Because it is not state that is going to be investing directly. States are supposed or are expected to provide necessary and logistic support to attract investors. And an average investor is in a hurry. Once they invest, they want to start keeping their investment yield. So it can't be the usual thing. The electricity power sector is serious business, but it takes a lot of money. I don't expect states to stifle progress or development of growth in their respective power sectors through needless bureaucracies. I assume that we're going to start to deal with those bureaucracies so that we can have a business approach to power sector regulation at the level of state. Because if you're not doing so in your state, the neighboring state is going to take an advantage of that. And a state may generate electricity. For instance, for your state, if Lagos is not ready, or your state may license and free up the needless bureaucracies and get approval from NRC to transmit or distribute across states, because the law says if you generate in your state, fine. But if you need to step from one state to the other, then the NRC will be involved in that. So we're going to see a lot of that. Of course, we're also going to see bulk trading. Some states are going to bulk trade in the power sector, meaning like we're going to have serious players being able to generate sufficient megawatts and doing the distribution for business purposes.
Right.
The sector is going to be very active as state level.
Yeah, we look
the law really provides that enablement.
We look forward to that, Prof. We really look forward to that because we know electricity has been a bane of Nigeria's industrializing for many decades before now. Thank you so much for your time this morning and sharing your thoughts with us on this electricity law. Professor Yemi Oke is a scholar in electricity law in Africa.
Thanks for having me.